Hey, welcome to Outsmart Your Guitar. I'm glad you could join us. Today's episode of Great Guitar Solos features the solo from a wonderful ballad from the mid-1980s by Lionel Ritchie, the song Hello. The solo is unique because it is perfect. And what that means is there's not one wasted note. Every note is sitting where it belongs, doing exactly what it's supposed to do, and there is nothing out of place. It's a great solo. It's not difficult to learn. You should learn it to understand what goes into a really great solo. All right, let's get to it. And be sure to like and subscribe to Outsmart Your Guitar along the way. And remember, down in the description, there is a link to patreon.com Outsmart Your Guitar. Go on over, join for free, have access to a number of lessons, then come on board as a full patron at one of 3 levels. You'll get a whole host of lessons that aren't featured here, expanded versions of lessons that are featured here, and access to all written material. Sound good? Okay, let's get going. In order to have something to play the solo over, you need the rhythm track that underlies the solo. So here it is laid out on screen. 3 basic chords, A minor, G, and F, and then you'll notice in the last measure, an A major. So I'm using the club grip because I don't want the low E. I don't want a lot of bottom end on this. And then, so I'm just playing the rest of the chord minus the low E string's root tone. All right, it's straight 4s, so pretty easy, right? And just play through it. And you'll notice on the 3rd and the 4th beat here, we have G, F. And so that's 1 time through. Here's the 2nd time. 1 more. Now, the 4th time, we do it a little different. From the F, we go right up to the A major, and then the pre-chorus starts with a D minor 7. The tempo is 60 to 62 beats a minute, no faster. Otherwise, the solo is going to sound rushed, and that's what we don't want in this particular instance. So learn it, get it down, the rhythm part, and put it to the metronome at 60 to 62 beats a minute, and then record it into your looper. Now you can do what I did. You're going to end it, you can end it on the D minor 7, and then allow a couple of seconds before stopping the looper to have a little gap before it begins again. All right, so take your time here, get this down, record it into your looper, then set that aside as we get into learning the solo. All right, let's look at the solo. We're going to break this down into bite-sized chunks and go by phrase. All right, so the first phrase lasts for the whole of the first measure and half of the second measure. Now, what you'll notice too is at the very beginning we have a pickup note, and it's on 4E and Whoops, let me turn that up. 4E and at the 7th fret on the 5th string. Then you just move over to the 4th string at 7 to start the main body of the solo and begin the first phrase. And so let's just go through the mechanics of the notes. Whoops. Go up to 10, back to 7, and 9. Now, you jump down to 5, and then slide up to 7, and then jump to 4. Then you have a pull-off from 5, and then at the beginning of the second measure, You're at 7 on the 4th string, and I caution you, use your 4th finger here because the very next note is your 3rd finger sliding up to 9 on the 3rd string, back to 7. That's the first phrase. All right? So you get through it mechanically. Okay? So teach your fingers what they're supposed to do. Then what you do, after you're pretty comfortable making the moves, you start to count it out. So again, we do the pickup, 4 E and 1 E and 2 E and 3 E and 4 E and 1 E and 4 E and 1 E and 2 E and 3 E and 4 E and 1 E and I can't stress how important it is to count this out and get the notes happening precisely where they're supposed to happen. So take your time here, work it out mechanically, then put it in time, and then smooth it out so that it actually is in time. Let's look at the second phrase of the solo. It starts on the 4th beat of the 2nd measure, goes through all of the 3rd measure, and into 90% of the 4th measure. So we start by sliding into 5 on the 2nd string. And then you come over to the 1st string at 5 and back. So you're rocking between the 5th fret on the 2nd and 1st string. Now, notice what I'm doing here. So I play this, I rock over to the 1st string, lifting just enough off the 2nd string to silence it, and then do it in reverse to just silence the 1st string. Okay, so practice that little maneuver. And then you come up here to the 7th fret on the 1st string. And you hold that note over through the first part of the next measure, the 3rd measure, and then we come up to 8, and then 5, and then 7 again. Now we go to 8 on the 2nd string, 5 on the 1st string, do that rocking motion to get 5 on the 2nd string. Now that's just mechanics. There's no time involved here, right? Then, once we get that down, we come over here to the 8th and 9th fret on the 2nd and 3rd string respectively with your 2nd and 3rd fingers. And you slide into those notes 3 times. Now, I'm hybrid picking the 2nd string and picking the 3rd string. Then you come down to 5 on the 3rd string, and then slide up to 9, 8 on the 2nd string, back to 7 on the 3rd string to finish the phrase. Now, once you get the mechanics of the 2nd phrase worked out, it's time to count it out. 4 E and 1 E and 2 E and 3 E and 4 E and 1 E and 2 E and 3 and but that starts the next phrase, so don't worry about that just yet. Okay? So you play through that whole second phrase and get that down mechanically, then start counting it out, and then play it in time. And you don't have to play it at 62 beats a minute. Just get it down in time. And you'll notice in the third measure, remember I talked about notes being precisely where they belong. In that third measure, that final right before the slide bit, that's a little rushed in technical sense. It's sooner than you think it is. So this is why counting these things out is so critical. All right? So take the time to make that happen. All right, it's time to put the two phrases together and play them in time after having worked them out. This is the additive process in action, where you get to correct things as you learn it because you're learning it in smaller pieces. They're more manageable, right? So I'm going to play through this, counting under my breath to make sure my notes are actually right where they belong and to demonstrate how you want to practice this. Here we go. 4 E and 1 E and 2 E and 3 E and 4 E and 1 E and 2 E, 3 E and 4 E and 1 E and 2 E and 3 E and 4 E and 1 E and 2 E and 3 E and 4 and all right. So that's what you want to do. And you want to do this until you get it down. Then you want to put it to a metronome to further reinforce your correct placement of the notes. All right? Take your time here, no rush. Let's look at the third phrase now. As you recall, I mentioned the octave note at the end of the fourth measure, and not to worry about that. Well, now it's time to bring it in play because that's the beginning of the third phrase. So you start there and you're at 7 on the fourth string and 10 on the second string with your first and fourth fingers. I'm using a pick on the bottom note and plucking with my finger on the top note, so using a hybrid technique to do this. Okay, so you start there, and then in the beginning of the fifth measure, we're up at 9 on the third string and 12 on the first string. So in all of this, for these octave notes, I'm just going to mention the first finger's note to keep it simple and fret position. So you're at 9, and then you move up to 10, back to 9, and then on the third string, move down to 7, up to 9, back to 7. And now, the next thing you do is a slur from 5 to 4 and back to 5. And you just pluck it once and slur down and back up. And then you're back over to 7 on the fourth string. And then you do the same idea here from 7 down to 5, back up to 7. And that ends the third phrase. Now, the goal is to put the notes together with their placement in time. So you don't necessarily need to play in time, you just need to count it out so you know what part of the beat each note occurs. For example, let me demonstrate here. We have our pickup here, right? So 4 E and 1 E and 2 E and 3 E and 4 E and 1 E and 2 E and 3 E and So I did actually more or less play it in time. So that's what your goal is. to play it in time, smooth it out, and put it to a metronome. So the goal here is very straightforward. You want to put all three phrases together now, all the while checking your progress in getting things sounding correct. All right, so here we go. This is what you're going for. 4 E and 1 E and 2 E and 3 E and 4 E and 1 E and 2 E and 3 E and 4 E and 1 E and 2 E 3 E and 4 E and 1 E and 2 E and 3 E and 4 E and 1 E and 2 and 3 E and 4 E and 1 E and 2 E and 3 E and So that's what you're going for. Take your time. Again, I can't stress this enough. Take your time, play it at a tempo you can actually do it smooth and flowing, and then don't move forward until you've got all three phrases nailed. The fourth phrase and final phrase of the song, the first half of it, starting on the fourth beat of the sixth measure, you already know. Right? So that's easy. Now, in the last measure on the third and fourth beats, you're playing triplets. So be careful to play them very smooth. You start at 7 on the fourth string, and then you jump down to the fourth fret of the fifth string. Remember, only 2 frets separate the octaves here on the fifth and third string. Moving up to 7 on the fifth string, then back over to 7 on the fourth string, stretch to 10 on the second string, and then 6 on the third string and 9. And that finishes it. 3 and 4 and up. Make sure you do not rush, that this has to be played very smooth to sound correct. So go ahead and practice the last phrase, and particularly the 2 triplets. All right, you got all 4 phrases now. You've worked them out, you've got them in time, you're playing them to the metronome. What is that tempo that you're able to play to the metronome? That's the tempo you record your loop rhythm part at, so that you can actually play over the rhythm and play smooth and flowing. All right, I'm going to demonstrate exactly what you're going for right now. I hope you can see why I picked this solo for this series, because it really is a beautiful, perfect solo. It tells its own little story. There's not one wasted note. The melody is beautiful, a little melancholy, and that is just part of the charm of what makes the solo to Hello by Lionel Ritchie such a great guitar solo. All right, that'll do for now. Until next time, you take care, and we'll see you then.